Good afternoon, evening, and welcome to another book launch video from Lineage Independent Publishing. My name is Michael Paul Hurd, and I'm the owner of Lineage Independent Publishing. And with me today is Patricia Donahue, who writes under the nom de plume of G.B. Carmichael.
Good
We're in the
evening.
process of releasing one of her next books, which is a children's book that is set in a rather mystical and magical place. So let's talk about the book for a few minutes, Pat. Who inspired you to write? Well, let's back up. The title of the book is Choo-Choo and the Adventures of Choo-Choo and MacPuff. Long ago, engines on the Great Highland Line is the subtitle, right? Did I get that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to do it all from memory. Anyway, and every book has an inspiration behind it. So, who or what to write this book?
Okay, well, if we go back to my first children's book, Tales from
Right.
Beyond the Fey Veil, if you remember, that came about because my granddaughter watched the launch of my first ever book. And she asked, Mike, could you please publish Nana's fairy stories that she wrote? Because I had written those to my granddaughters during COVID because they were desperately missing coming to stay. And at the following launch of said book, my daughter-in-law, who had a 1-year-old son at the time, said, what about the boys? Roman would like a book, please. And I waited. Well, I didn't wait. I had to wait because my mojo got up and disappeared for a while. I think started this book about 4 times and was never happy with it. They weren't talking to me. But Roman was growing. And so I said to him, so what kind of book am I to write for you? And he said, dinosaurs, Nana, and choo-choo trains. And I thought, okay. It still didn't inspire me until one day I was hoovering and just suddenly I heard, MacPuff, MacPuff, help, in my head. And I sat down and within an hour I had the outline bones of 10 adventures. And it changed from Choo-Choo, MacPuff and the dinosaurs to the adventures of Choo-Choo and MacPuff.
Okay. So it's
one. Roman really is the inspiration.
So it's one of those things that between the grandson and the poof, the aha moment.
Yes.
It ended up in about 140-page children's book.
Yeah.
So, right. So the book is set up so that it's meant for children and their parents to share it. Now, remember I told you when we were getting it set up for publication that we had to select an age group for one of the distributors. And that was kind of off because it's meant for pre-readers right on through what we would call middle school, the young teenager age group. And the stories are for the children and their parents. At least that's my impression. Was that your intent?
It was, because as with everything, and I think I've always sort of come back to this point in all of our book launches, is that I learned to read at my grandmother's knee, and she did not buy what she called soppy books that were sort of like, oh, cuckoo, choo-choo, to babies and children. She read books that were well written, like the Sabu the Elephant Boy and Rudyard Kipling's stuff. There was harshness in it, but it wasn't something that terrified me. This was happening a long time ago, and even I knew that at a small age. And I have to say I'm not a fan of all this watering things down, because I think that children are much more resilient than we give them credit for now. And I just wanted them to understand the story and love it for being a good story, whether it was mum and dad reading it to them, like I read the Harry Potter, no, not the Harry Potters, the other one, Tolkien's books, The Hobbit and things, to my children.
Mhm.
And I would use different voices and everything for the characters and have them diving under the covers when Smeagol came, you know. And I wanted these books to be read by parents to children who were too small to read them.
Mhm.
But I also wanted them, as they grew, to be able to get the book down and read it for themselves. And
Okay.
my granddaughter, who's 12 and who is a budding author in her own right now, little minx, she loves it. She loves the stories. She's
Okay.
read them all, and she loves all of them. So even at 12, writing about World War I stuff, she still likes fairy stories and magic things.
Okay. All right. Well,
Still at that age, isn't it?
while we're on the subject of reading aloud, don't you have a sample for us?
I do. And
Okay.
I know that it's not from your favorite story, but I wanted people to get a flavor of exactly what this is. So it's the start of the very first story.
And are we
Choo-Choo.
going to hear this in a Scottish brogue or just
Of course. Of
okay.
course.
All right. It's all yours.
You're supposed to hear it the way that it's supposed to have been said. And it's Choo-Choo, MacPuff and the dinosaurs. MacPuff, MacPuff, help! Cried the steam engine as it tore into the station at Fort William. Sandy Ferguson, the fireman, was trying to calm the smaller of the two engines who ran up and down the West Highland line. Jock McLean, the driver, had at last slowed the train as it reached the end of the long platform. MacPuff pulled up alongside Choo-Choo. What in heaven's name is wrong with you, lad? Oh, Mac, they chased me all the way from the viaduct at Glenfinnan to the very outskirts of the town about a mile back. Who chased you? Asked MacPuff. Choo-Choo took a deep breath, then said, Jock says there were baby dinosaurs. There were 7 that hatched in the mud of the landslide caused by last night's storm. It was parallel to the station at Glenfinnan over the other side of the valley. He said that there were a couple of pterodactyls, 2 oviraptors, a triceratops, and Brontosaurus and a plesiosaurus. They were very big babies, and as soon as they saw me, they started making a terrible wailing noise and chased me. Jock said, when some creatures are born, they bond with the first thing that they see, thinking it's their mother. Sadly, I was what they saw. MacPuff laughed so hard his whistle blew. You're a dino, mummy, he managed to splutter amidst his laughter. It's low laughing matter, Mac, coughed Choo-Choo sharply. Jock, what am I going to do? I won't be safe with them chasing me and the train up to my leg, cried Choo-Choo. Aye, that's right enough, mused the driver. MacPuff will have to do all the runs till we figure this out. Suddenly, Jock's face changed, softened, and he smiled. I've an idea, but I need to go seek help from an old friend in Inverness before I can share my plan. Later that evening, Jock was sitting on the banks of the northern end of Loch Ness. It was dusk as he pulled his pipe chanter from his bag and began playing an ancient tune passed down from father to son, from a time when magic lay o'er the land like the heather. That was in the time of the Picts, the first folk of Scotland. It was a haunting lament composed for the funeral of an ancient fairy king. Jock had been playing for maybe 3 or 4 minutes when he began to see ripples on the surface of the water further down the loch. Then the dark waters broke barely 10 feet from where Jock sat playing. Nessie's great long neck stretched up, and cocking her head to one side, she listened till Jock finished his sad refrain. I never fail to be moved by your magical fingers as they dance o'er the notes, sending such soulful chords across our great land. Thank you, Nessie, said Jock. I hoped you'd come. I need your help and advice on a very difficult problem we have up Glenfinnan way. Oh, do tell. It sounds interesting, and I'm rather bored scaring sightseers hereabouts.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
My apologies for the hesitation. Because I've got a maclear hole in my eye, I lost the place where I was reading and I couldn't find it again in time.
Hate it when that happens.
Yes.
So now you mentioned several locations in there. The stories take place on what's known as the Great Highland Railway line. Where is that exactly in Scotland?
Right. The Great West Highland Line is in the west of Scotland, but it does actually go from Edinburgh through Glasgow, and then it goes up, and it will go between the most of the stories that I have set here are between Fort William and Mallaig, which is sort of right into the north part. But from Glasgow and Edinburgh, it goes up, it goes through Tyndrum, then it branches off and goes to Oban. The other part goes up and it goes to Ranach, which is mentioned in there. And then it goes further on up into Fort William. So it's all on the west side, coming out from Edinburgh through Glasgow onto the west side, and then all up through there.
Okay, and Loch Ness is, of course, somewhere near there too.
Well, because it's Inverness is where the loch starts, but the loch goes a way long way from Inverness to the other end of it. So, yeah, it's
cool.
Scotland's never far from the sea anyway.
Right. Now, have you ridden any part of that line in your travels around Scotland?
Absolutely. I had the joy in 2014. I went on what most people seeing the pictures that I have would say, oh, that's the Hogwarts Express, because it went from Fort William up through Glenfinnan and into Mallaig. And Glenfinnan is where the Glenfinnan Viaduct is where the Hogwarts scene of the flying blue Anglia car took place.
Okay.
But it's more famous in Scotland for other things than Hogwarts Express.
Anything suitable for younger viewers?
Oh, absolutely.
About what the viaduct's famous for besides Hogwarts.
Yes, that's what I was. Absolutely. It's famous for the fact that the Glenfinnan stop is there because at the shores of Loch Heel, which is just below where the station is where Bonnie Prince Charlie called the Jacobites to arms in the 45 uprising.
Right. Okay.
So for Scots, that's what Glenfinnan means, not Hogwarts.
Right. And of course, the 45 uprising was when the rebellion was basically quashed, for lack of better term, thanks to the brutality of the British Army.
Yes, the butcher.
So, yeah, the Scots were basically butchered. And for those of you that might be Outlander fans,
you'll know.
There's a whole section in there about Culloden, Bonnie Prince Charlie, and the prisons up in that area of Scotland. Yeah. So, but let's move on to a brighter subject.
I did travel on the train called the Jacobite from Fort William to Mallaig and back again.
Right, and there's a picture of that in the book.
There is a picture in the book that I took on that day. Yes.
So let's move on to something a little bit brighter. Scotland's folklore is filled with fairies and tales of things that go bump in the night. Quoting Robbie Burns. In Tales from Beyond the Fae Vales, many of the characters took on magical qualities. While in the adventures of Choo-Choo and MacPuff, the interactions between humans and objects are central to the stories. Which of the two books was easier to write from that respect?
There wasn't one that was easier or harder, to be honest. I was thinking about this afternoon when I was getting the piece ready, and I sort of, it occurs to me that when I wrote Tales from Beyond the Fae Vale, I didn't intend to write a book. I was writing little stories and poems for grandchildren that were suffering the effects of COVID's isolations. At that time, my granddaughters were aged between the sort of 4 and 9. Now, Roman is 4 now, but when I wrote for Fae Vale, I was writing for Mia's age group that would be read to the younger ones.
Right.
Because she was the one that was the most sort of pushing for this hunger of needing contact with me. So with Choo-Choo and MacPuff, Roman is 4, and again I was led by what he was reading, and that's, you know, things like gosh, what is it called, Thomas the Tank Engine and things like that. They're written as though the trains are able to have dialogue with each other and with their drivers and firemen and the Fat Controller, and other stories that he reads. So I just wrote it the way he'd understand it, which just came out that way. It wasn't any harder than writing the Fey Vale, because I don't think I've told you this before, I don't think about what I'm going to write. I sit down and it just goes, and oh, that's a surprise, that's nice. Because it's like somebody else is using me as an automaton to write this stuff.
Right. Well, you've told me about the feeling that you have a little you sitting on your shoulder talking into your ear.
Yes.
You know, or one of your characters sitting on your shoulder.
It's like they're saying, you've got to listen to me. You have to listen to what I'm saying, and I have to listen. So,
but all right. So we've already read the sample. So now, what is your favorite story in Choo-Choo and MacPuff? Mine is The Ghost on the Line. You know, probably because I'm an Outlander fan. But what's your favorite?
It's actually the same one.
With the Ghost on the Line.
The Ghost on the Line, yes,
okay.
But for a very different reason.
No, see, one of the things that I like about that chapter is that it evokes some very visceral images of you know, a lost soul looking for people that were taken before it was their time, and it just, you know, there's just some visual imagery in that story that you know, from the description of the ghost, the phantasm, the specter, whatever you want to call it, and then just all of it, when everything is resolved, he disappears to his eternal reward. I mean, it's very moving to me.
I love it because, and I don't know if I've ever told you this before, but I used to have something happen as a trick with my mouth, that when I spoke about Culloden, I would say, I'd love to go back. I had never been. And I'd have to say, I don't know why I keep saying that. I just want to go to Culloden. And one day I did go to Culloden, and in the visitors centre, not Culloden. Yes, Glencoe rather. Glencoe, not Culloden. And one day I went there, and I went into the visitors centre, and I bought a book. And in the book, it tells how my name is registered under the Robertson clan. And it's because as survivors of Glencoe, people hid within other clans that were friendly to them. They hid with the Reeds. They hid with the Robertsons. They hid with others. They changed their name. They went back to the ancient Irish Celtic Donogh, and that's how Donaghy and Donahue came about. And when I realized that I was a MacDonald in my soul, it answered why I kept saying I want to go back. Because when I went into Glencoe and we walked up deep into the valley, I wept. I just wept. This was before I'd read the book in the visitor centre. I just stood and wept. I felt such sorrow in that place. And that was why that's my favorite book. Because I feel the sorrow of McKeon. Because he didn't know. He went to sleep thinking that he'd got guests staying with him, and he was dead before he knew that they were wolves in the hen house.
Wow. I mean, that's one of the things as writers we strive to do is to pull people into our stories, you know. And that's one of the things that me, for example, when I'm was writing some of my earlier books, I would have to go back and think, okay, I'm just presenting facts. I'm not telling a story here,
Mm.
you know. And I had to go back and rethink how I was writing, you know. And the whole thing is to you got to be able to pull people into the book, into the story, make them feel like they're there, even
Yeah,
if that,
true. They need to feel what you are feeling or what you want the character they're reading about to feel. They need to feel that. There's an empathy between the reader and the writer in those words.
And sometimes that means you have to change the voice that you're writing in, whether it's first person you're writing as if you were the character, to changing that to writing as if you were a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
And switching between the two, the literary critics, if you will say, well, you can't do that in a book. You can if you pay attention to how you're doing it and are consistent all the way through the book.
I read all about these points of view things, or first person, third person, that kind of thing. I just write the book. It comes out as it comes out. I have no clue. If it needs to be said by the character, then they say it. And if it needs me to just tell them where they're going or what they're doing, then I do it.
Right. So, so anyway, both Tales from Beyond the Fey Veil and The Adventures of Choo-Choo and MacPuff were written for younger readers. Okay. Yes. Compared to, say, The Vacation Killer or the We Meet Again compilation, did you have to change your writing style dramatically? Well, I know the answer is yes, but how did you change it?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think because the characters in my ear are in The Vacation Killer and any of the other compilations where they're adult stories, then it's an adult talking to me. In the two children's ones, it's like it's a child's voice that's talking to me and telling me what's going on.
Right.
Or a fairy's voice. I don't know. Maybe it's, a ghost or a fairy. I don't know.
So, I mean, it's an art. I don't think I could ever write myself for a younger audience. I've tried, and I just can't do it.
I think when we try to do it, we can't. I think that was why I was going 3 or 4 times, starting it and going, this is rubbish, and threw it away. Because if I tried to read it as a child, it was boring because it was too factual. It needed to be more interesting, like the cow with the knickers on his horn, and when they're waiting, trying to herd the dinosaurs to the loch side, and they're chasing a vole down a hedge, because children are going to be, that's what's going to make them, look what's happening. If it was a movie, that's the things that are going to make them really catch into the movie.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the chapter, the story you were just talking about. Hamish the Highland Coo.
Highland Coo.
I love the way
Highland Coo.
Highland Coo.
The Highland Coo.
I love the way that story ends.
Yeah. I wasn't quite sure if it was her love of beef roast dinner. Yeah. No, I enjoyed that. I was flicking through looking for a photo for something else when I saw the Highland cow image on the screen, and I thought, he looks really mischievous. He looks as though he's just eaten somebody's whole sort of showstopper carrots or cabbages or something. And I thought, oh yeah, okay, here we go. And that's off it went.
And it was a story.
Yes.
Right. So the last question I have for you, Pat, is kind of it may be a little bit difficult to answer, but one of the tricks that the Disney enterprise uses in its children-focused featured films are subliminal inclusions of attention grabbers aimed at adults. Did you perhaps do any of that in Choo-Choo and MacPuff?
If I did, I didn't know I was doing it. I had to look up what that was when I read your question list that you sent me. And all of it was completely new to me. It went straight over my head watching movies. But if there are any messages that the children or the parents, when they're reading my stories from this one or the Fey Vale, is that I hope that they take away the importance of friendship, family, honor, love and pride in your country and its past and its culture. That it's okay to be proud of those things and to stand up for those things. That, I think, is if they're going to take anything away from my books, that's what I want them to take away from. Their love of country, their love of friendship, their love of family, and the honor that it is to be part of that family, part of that greater family and country. And its history and its culture. Because, God, I'm proud of being a Scot.
As you've told me many times before.
And I will keep telling you all the while you're daft enough to publish me.
I think that's actually probably a pretty good place to stop.
Yeah,
So Pat, I thank you very much for your time and willingness to talk about another one of your books,
thank you.
which right now is available on Amazon in e-reader format. And it's also available elsewhere in e-reader format. If you go to books2read.com and search on G.B. Carmichael in quotation marks, you'll be able to find it there as well. But and we hope to have the paperback and hardcover version of it released sometime in the next few days, pending printing from one of our distributors, Ingram Industries. Or they sometimes take a little bit of time. But so anyway, my name is Michael Paul Hurd. I'm the owner of Lineage Independent Publishing. With me today has been G.B. Carmichael, also known as Patricia Donahue. The two seem to be inseparable at this point. Sometimes I get, who am I talking to, Pat or G.B.? Anyway, so and if you have any questions for us, feel free to post them either on the YouTube channel or in Facebook or wherever you're reading or watching this podcast. And thank you for your time, and we hope you've enjoyed it.
And thank you, Mike, for publishing me. I still can't quite get over the fact that at my great age of 71 that I am now a published author of now 5 books.
You are quite welcome. I didn't think there was something worth publishing. I wouldn't have taken the huge step to be working across the pond like this.
And because it has thrown up many challenges, has it not?
Oh yes. So all right, so we'll end that here and have a wonderful evening.
And you, and I hope everybody thoroughly enjoys the book, whether they're parents reading it or little ones listening to it.